One of my first videos on this channel covered an early access adult Five Nights at Freddy's style game by Monster Box called In Heat Lustful Nights. My goal was to show that even if you turn the adult content off, it was still a good game. Hopefully I accomplished that despite the production issues. Well, as I hinted at near the end, the game was due for another big update and the promised arcade mode is finally here. Not just that, but a few changes to the existing modes as well that fit their pursuit of creating an even better game. Let's talk about it. Spoilers, by the way. As a reminder, there are currently 4 modes: Security Office, Nightclub, Dating, and now Arcade. I'll be going through them in chronological order, which I've now indicated through the Play Game menu. Like last time, my comments and footage are based on the SFW version of the game. Since Arcade advances the story, I'll also give a recap of the plot for each mode, and I'd recommend watching my first video for more in-depth info on the core mechanics. Starting with the Security Office mode, you play as Employee 20, a name that carries certain implications. A new hire tasked to maintaining the facility until 7 a.m. each night while keeping the Diamond Straits Resort's famous girls at bay. For gameplay purposes, this is the most traditional FNAF-like experience in the game, but with a twist on the resource system where you manage sanity instead of power. One small gameplay change that I want to address first is one that I showed but didn't describe before. The intended way of viewing the number of maintenance emergencies is a colored light bar in your office, where green means none and yellow, red, and purple respectively indicate 1, 2, or 3 tasks. However, they since took colorblind players into account and added a separate indicator next to it where the number of lit bars indicate the same thing, but starting with 3 lit bars and going down to 0. Even if I don't need it, I appreciate the center's attempt at making the game more accessible, plus it can be useful for trichromats as a quick reference. The biggest change, however, is the reduction of the number of nights from 12 to 7, 8 if you include the tutorial. This also means a slight adjustment to the difficulty curve and how the mode layers in new mechanics. Night 1 still introduces Sammy, Poppy, and Niall, and Night 2 still layers in Misty as a way of making players watch their plushie usage more. However, Ari is now introduced on Night 3, which makes the player care more about their sanity, and Maddie is introduced in Night 4 as an additional distraction to deal with and make players use the microwave in the restaurant. In the interim, Maddie also received a patch, so now she can come in from the left side and her ominous and concerned voice lines are less infrequent.
I wonder if we will get out of this okay. I felt shaking again. Are you okay?
After that, Nights 5 and 6 don't introduce any new obstacles and instead ramp up the difficulty until the boss fight on Night 7. While I personally didn't mind the gradual ramp in the original setup, I'll also admit that it made replaying the game for footage pretty tedious, so reducing the number of nights was a good call. The tighter pacing not only helped with replaying the game for this video, but should also make this mode more enjoyable for new players, including those used to the tighter pacing and layering of FNAF and FNAF style games. This also creates a smoother lead-in for the boss fight against Ari, who transforms into Blood Moon Ari, something that's also subtly worked into the current UI. Instead of showing up after the player has potentially grown bored of the gameplay loop, it now comes at the height of the difficulty ramp, so now it feels less jarring and more like a true test of the player's skill. She operates the same as before, including how looking at her in the cameras will freeze her in place even if Maddie blocks her view. The fight still isn't too difficult once you know what to do, but I felt like I was on the edge of my seat towards the end on this playthrough. As far as lore goes, there's not much in this mode apart from more vague notions. What we know for sure here is that Employee 20 is a fresh hire. Beyond that, the phone guy preemptively deflects a question about what essence is, and Maddie is clearly concerned about something going on at the resort that's far beyond the scope of our current position. Anything else we could glean from this mode would be pure speculation. However, I will point out the 2 portraits in the main circular room, as the subjects are clearly important enough to have their visages framed and prominently displayed. After surviving his role in the security office, Employee 20 is promoted to working at the nightclub, which appears to be the main draw of the resort. His job is now to pair the girls with clients who have paid for a chance at intimacy.
An IT specialist. So many of them here.
In terms of gameplay, this is represented as a score attack mode, where the goal is to get as high a score as possible within 9 hours, starting from 2100, or 9 p.m., and ending at 6 a.m. The night can't end prematurely, but a failing grade will prevent you from moving forward. As with the security office mode, Nightclub had the number of nights reduced from 12 to 7, 8 with the tutorial. This doesn't change when any of the girls or customer types are introduced, but it does create tighter pacing and creates more of a sense that every night is layering in something new leading up to the boss fight, which makes the difficulty curve more rewarding. The only other noticeable changes were removal of the phone ghost from the original Night 8 and the second phone guy getting shot at the end of the original Night 11 phone call where he tells you not to trust Cass. Now, recapping the story and lore elements of Nightclub mode would require talking about the boss fight again. So I'm going to talk about the boss fight again. Night 7 starts with Poppy brainwashing the other girls so that she can enact her plan to overthrow Diamond Straits. You are a wrench in her plans because you are literally immune to propaganda.
How the fuck did you make yourself immune to weaponized propaganda?
This boss fight plays out exactly the same as before, but Poppy's lines were re-recorded with a different voice actress, which affects the tone and inflections, but not the content or intent.
I'm going to break that stupid brass statue above your head. I'm going to break that stupid brass statue above your head.
Also, there's a new background track that does a lot for the atmosphere. At the end, Poppy reveals her motivation. She's sure that Diamond Straits did something to her, but she doesn't know what. However, she does feel that the resort monetizes the girls every waking moment while they waste their lives pleasing tourists and rich people. As such, she wants them to finally experience true freedom. This cutscene ends with Poppy trying and failing to brainwash Employee 20 one more time. Afterwards, there's one more sequence where Cass interacts with a caged being named Saya. Their interaction is brief, but we know that Cass has the ability to kill Saya whenever she chooses, but decides not to, and Saya can survive whatever prison she's in. The final shot is purple vines slowly creeping their way towards Saya's cage. Beyond what's known, there are other details that, as of this video, haven't been fully explained yet. Poppy sometimes mentions someone named Jimmy, and even says he should be in your position, but we don't know who he is just yet, just the idea she cared deeply about him. She also mentions wanting to break the statue above your office, which depicts Saya, a character who is clearly important enough to Diamond Straits to be immortalized in brass. I tried speculating on these before, but I'm certain that I was way off base, so I don't really stand by what I said anymore, and I'll just let future updates reveal more. The only other detail that stands out is that this phone guy says that Ari was created for a specific purpose. I'll get back to that. For now, I want to bring up the store again. Throughout the first two modes, you can earn tokens by either completing nights or finding them through the cameras and clicking on them. These tokens are used in a capsule machine that lets you earn prizes, including very adult tapes that I'm not even going to risk showing the thumbnails for because YouTube, and other various items and gifts. I only wanted to mention the shop again because they made collecting tokens for the capsule machine significantly less grindy, so you get a feeling of accomplishment while making the virtual gambling more appealing to the dopamine receptors that are hopefully still intact. Also, the gifts are useful for the dating mode, which brings me to the dating mode, a visual novel style experience where Employee 20 interacts with the girls outside of work. Previously, I suggested that it was a canon version of the spin-off game In Heat Honeymoon, but I haven't played that and I don't know its canon status, so I'll retract that here. Currently, you can go through the first dates for Sammy, Niall, and Poppy. I went into a lot of depth in my previous video, so I won't go through the play-by-play again. As far as I can tell, there aren't any differences anyway. In a nutshell, though, the opossum hybrid Prinny runs a dating service for the girls. When they get a golden ticket, they pick someone they want to date as a way to de-stress, which Prinny then arranges. Through various circumstances, including a golden ticket, Employee 20 meets Sammy, Niall, and Poppy, who all show that they have depths that most on the island aren't aware of. Each time, he also interacts with Cass, who tracks his every move and knows everything that's going on. Well, except for the sensual meeting with the lovely and ominous Maddie.
Okay, sweetie, go get her.
After the meeting with Poppy, Cass texts Employee 20 about doing some extra work the next night. That extra work, it turns out, is the arcade mode. Unlocking this mode requires completing Poppy Date 1, but since I already done so in the previous video, I triggered the flag again with an auto-clicker, only to be disappointed there was no fanfare and I'd have to just know to look in the play game menu again. Cass walks Employee 20 through a digital VR training program called the Employee Preparedness Program, designed to help make him better at his job. After she covers the basics, she runs into a glitch and has to restart the system. Just before that can occur, however, Saya has managed to break into the program as a second player and dodges the reset so she can assist Employee 20 while she has her own battle against a new version of Sammy. So here's how it works. Arcade mode is like a souped up version of the security office mode, but you must survive until 10 a.m. and it lasts 7 nights including a tutorial. You have 3 doors to defend you, one on either side and one behind you. A light above the door indicates that someone is nearby and wants to get in. You can use the cameras to check who it is, but you can also just close the door. Closing any of the doors will slowly drain your energy, with the drain rate proportional to the number of closed doors. Energy is restored either slowly and passively by leaving all doors open, or quickly and more immediately by playing a micro game with the generator in the back. A fuse may go out, which you can change by going to the fuse box and interacting with stuff until it's fixed. Saya introduces another wrinkle. You can ping at any time to interact with certain objects, including ones shaped like coins, and destroy goon Sammys. Interacting with objects this way drains some of Saya's psych power, which will passively refill after a moment. Use of psych power, however, will also increase corruption by a value dependent on what you interacted with. If the corruption is maxed out, all doors are forced open and tentacles will spawn throughout the simulation. Finding and destroying 3 tentacles will end the corruption and reset it back to 0. During the first 5 nights, Employee 20 will have to fend off different sets of variations of each of the girls. Each variant has their own gameplay quirks and a way to counter them, though some of them are either passive or aren't inherently malicious. Some will require you to react in your office with a parry, which will not only stop the clock, but also force you out of the cameras and halt any actions you were in the middle of. At the start of night 6, the final night, we hear a mysterious clip from an old broadcast.
But Sammy Sunday, strong as ever, would not give in.
The original. The incredible.
There's nothing else to be done. It's just...
She's going to die.
She's going to die.
She's going to die.
You're going to die.
After that, the boss of this mode appears, an enemy that the game calls Cheshire Sammy, and starts stalking Employee 20. Like the other bosses so far, she has an unusual attack pattern. Every 2 hours on the dot, she'll leap out from the screen in the office, which can only be blocked with a very short parry window. If you catch her in the cameras, a corrupted smiley face will slowly approach the screen. If you don't look away in time, she'll choke you out in the office unless you struggle enough to free yourself from her grasp. If she reaches the office, she'll force the door open and poke her head in, giving you a brief window to close the door on her and chop off her head. She's not the only threat, as you also have to face a horde of goon Sammy, shadowy versions of the security office girls, all their gameplay intact, and a variant called Mad Hatter Poppy. Don't ask me how she works. If you make it to 10 a.m., Cheshire Sammy will attack Employee 20 one last time, but you must parry her in time. This knocks her back, and Saya asks Employee 20 to finish her off. As Employee 20 considers what to do, Cheshire Sammy is clearly not down, and we get a "to be continued" screen. I'm not going to lie, playing through arcade mode for this video was absolutely brutal. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad this mode exists as a new way to explore future design space within this setting, and it's nice to see developers attempt something more ambitious like this. The promise of a very meaty finished product is wonderful, and I like that they're clearly capable of realizing their vision. However, this mode didn't give the best first impression, and it needed some work. Unlike Security Office and Nightclub, which had a manageable balance of skill and RNG, Arcade felt a bit too reliant on RNG to get through, especially nights 3 and 5. Not only are you thrown into the deep end with a new set of enemies each and every night, but the instructions for dealing with them are too vague for their own good. It was really a trial by fire and took me a few hours to really finish, not helped by how it didn't play nice with the DualSense that I used for the rest of the game, so I was forced to use mouse and keyboard, which I personally find less comfortable. I'm not asking that they make this mode as easy as the others, which already provide a relatively relaxing atmosphere compared to its competition, but rather making it less overwhelming. The tutorial already didn't do the best job at explaining everything that Saya could interact with, and I ended up dying multiple times before I finally figured out what her notes meant. By the way, I like that they're in character, please don't change that aspect. I also don't mind the variety of enemies at all, but it feels like someone throwing you into the deep end each time a new night starts, if only because their mechanics aren't communicated properly. The amount of rooms is sometimes an issue, if only because there are plenty you never think to look in, and there are some that you almost never will. In fact, here are some tips that can help make your arcade runs just a bit easier. It's not an exhaustive list, but I died repeatedly so you don't have to figure out some of the harder ones. I'll mention that the game over screens can sometimes give you a hint, but you'll still have to decipher it if it means anything at all. Sometimes they just make you scratch your head. Security Office Niall. The description says that you have to let her in. This is actually true. However, what you have to do is look at her when she's at the door until she leaves. Don't take your eyes off her until she does. If you see her coming, make sure there aren't any other distractions. Nightclub Niall. She'll sit in your office the whole night and occasionally ask for something, but you're not told how to give her what she wants. What you're supposed to do is go to the claw machine and get the prize. To do that, adjust the camera so it's on the claw machine, then move the claw until the shadow lines up with the prize and hit interact. After that, you can exit the camera and you'll get the prize no matter where you are, which you then present to Niall. Interestingly, you can get a prize ahead of time and give it to her the moment she asks, as long as you enter and exit the cameras first. Nightclub Ari. She's anxious about seeing something specific that will make her transform into the unblockable Blood Moon Ari and hunt you down. That something is blue orbs, which will fill up a moon-shaped icon above Ari if she's in their presence for too long. Just click the orbs as soon as you see them. Sammy 64. Good lord, Sammy 64. At certain hours, you'll hear her say,
"Let's go! Away, away, away!"
and then likely die because you have no idea how to stop her. You can try to track her through the cameras to determine which doors she'll enter through, but that's pointless. Just close all possible entrances, the left and right doors as of a hotfix, and wait her out. You may also want to top off your energy at the generator while you're at it, or else you'll likely get gooned to death. Arcade Poppy. Her micro game isn't hard, but you have to get really good at anticipation and dodging based on your opponent's wind-up. After that, it's a matter of timing. I know that sounds like good, but I'm in the same boat as you. Maybe if there was just slightly more telegraphing. Arcade Niall. The description sounds a little misleading, but it's very literal. If you can identify which of the two possible cameras that she's in, you'll have to top off the meter above her head by occasionally staring at her. You may be tempted to speed things up through psych power, but if you do that at full meter, you're dead. Hold off on doing that until you're about to be overwhelmed with other distractions, and even then, make sure the meter isn't too full. Prinny. Sorry, but I have no idea what level of control she has or what exactly it means when the market is up. However, when the market is down, there's a random chance of Cheshire Sammy appearing on screen and increasing your corruption. Not much you can do since he's a passive obstacle. Nightclub Maddie. Honestly, I don't know what all of her tarot cards do, especially Renovationist. You only have the picture to go off of as a hint. It's annoying, and yet I can't stay mad at her. I mean, come on, that's adorable. As for the Cheshire Sammy fight, I wouldn't know what to say except pray to RN Jesus and get used to her patterns. When I finally beat it, I just barely scraped by and got nervous about missing a QTE and doing all of it all over again. Just look at the state I was in when that clock finally rolled over to 10. Having said all that, it's hard to be too harsh. After all, the game is still in active development, and anything I've said can become outdated at literally any moment. In fact, I was mostly vague about threats you encounter during arcade mode because a couple days after implementing the new mode, the developers issued a fix that adjusted the balance of each night, which included removing certain enemies. Not only that, they took full responsibility for getting too excited and releasing the mode before it was absolutely ready for prime time, and even thanked players for helping them figure out what needed fixing so that they can make it the best mode possible. I respect them even more for that statement, and I wish more developers had a similar attitude. Still, I suppose I should take some pride in beating the mode pre-patch, even if I wouldn't recommend down patching. If nothing else, I now have more respect for Ultimate Custom Night players. Speaking of, beating Cheshire Sammy also unlocks Custom Night, a feature that I'm sure many FNAF players expect in this sort of game. In Custom Night, you can select how many of the 26 available enemies you want to play against, including 2 new ones, and set their AI values between 1 and 5. Other settings are putting them all to 1, all of them to max, or switching all of them on or off at once. Playing this mode can let you hone in on what makes everyone tick, which you can use to perfect arcade mode stages or prepare yourself for a possible 26-5 run. If you'd like to see me attempt that particular challenge in the future, let me know below. Now, as for the lore, this mode has a substantial amount.
Ring the lore, alarms the lore!
During each night, you may find that 1 or 2 screens, usually in the generator room and or the prize counter, have turned pink. If you click on them, you'll hear recordings of Arbuck's attempts at creating animal hybrids.
Okay, good. You're the picture of health. Or you're trolling Brendan and that makes you obedient to all basic instructions without any thought at all. I'm hoping for the former. Sorry, that's... I should be more careful thinking out loud.
These recordings also include interactions with a man named Delgado, presumably her assistant, and another unidentified woman. Listening to them, they are rather disturbing, especially as they go on and acting like a good reminder that underneath all the excitement and stimulation, this is still a horror game, one that delivers on its promises on the Steam page while also providing a deeper look at its characters for those willing to dig for it. Worth noting is that while Sammy, the one in the recordings, slides into mental instability, she seems to feel more comfortable around Delgado, who actually shows her a shred of kindness. I base this on the hugging line, which I want to interpret as more wholesome.
I want you to know you don't have to go through this alone, okay? No one should be alone. Now, if you want me to leave, hey, I didn't think you were a hugger. That's fine. I can be one too.
With all this new lore in mind, I think it's time to try another stab at a game theory. Last time I threw a bunch of science at the wall hoping that something would stick, and I think I was onto something with my last suggestion. I'm going to suggest that the girls in Diamond Straits were originally fictional characters created by Arbuck, and the Essence experiments were some way of trying to bring these characters to life. When I looked at the comics, including the one on the Dark Gray website, I noticed the name Arbuck Dale and assumed it was one person. However, if you pay attention to the intro in the arcade, there is a very powerful slash between the two words, suggesting that we are actually dealing with 2 people, Arbuck and Dale, with the former spearheading the whole operation. They're both likely the ones represented in the framed paintings in the security office mode. In the hugging audio, Delgado mentions the name Natasha, which leads me to consider the full name Natasha Arbuck. By that logic, the other woman in the recordings is likely Dale. Going back to my game theory based on the Sammy Sunday comics, as well as my knowledge of writing techniques, I believe that Cheshire Sammy is the original attempt at creating the Sammy we've interacted with throughout the rest of the game. The full details are still completely unknown, mind you, but what I've pieced together so far is that Arbuck used Essence to create a hybrid based on her original character, Sammy Sunday. Although Arbuck was successful, this Sammy had issues and gradually deteriorated physically and mentally, partially from Arbuck's poor treatment of her to the point that she was eventually on the brink of death. This somehow led to her becoming Cheshire Sammy, a tragic being who never had any autonomy of her own and yearns for freedom at any cost. Her hatred of Saya will indicate that she had some involvement in what happened, though we can't say for certain without future updates. Sammy's journey also echoes Poppy's in the sense that she was also denied her bodily autonomy and sought revenge at any cost. I'll also mention that I did notice an obvious and deliberate Alice in Wonderland theme in arcade mode, though I'm waiting to see where it goes before I consider something more concrete. I'm also curious to learn more about this group of 4 girls right here. Quick interruption. While editing this video, I noticed that the circular room where Mad Hatter Poppy spawns has a headless version of one of the portraits seen in the security office mode. Considering Cheshire Sammy's burning hatred towards her creator, as well as the off with their head motif, I'm guessing that this portrait depicts Arbuck. Now back to the video. Despite its faults at the time of this upload, I thought that arcade mode was actually a pretty good addition to the game that helps keep things fresh. Based on the roadmap they gave before, it's clear that Monster Box already knows what they want out of In Heat, and I really want to see them succeed. If you want to help them do so, the game is $15 on Steam and itch.io, though it sometimes goes on sale. As for the storyline, while it's fun to theorize or try to anticipate what may come, I really want them to stick to their guns and not do what other mascot horrors have done, where they clearly make things up as they go along. They have a vision covering surprisingly deep themes for an adult game, and we should let them cook. And that's the video. Even if you don't end up playing the game yourself, I hope you enjoyed this update. Scripting and editing videos based on a game that's still in active development is probably a foolish endeavor since I can't cast full judgment on it yet, but I'm impressed by what Monster Box is doing and I just want to share some of that excitement. That said, I'd like to make another video in the future if there's a substantial enough update to the game. If you'd like to see that kind of video in the future, consider subscribing. Until we meet again.